Wow. Meeting is streaming live in Facebook. It's just so exciting. Welcome everybody to ICA TV land. If you're watching on the group, well done. That's really cool. Thank you for joining us live. If you are out there on LinkedIn or YouTube or on my page, then thank you, and you'll be #replay. So that'd be great to see who you are and just to say hi to us and how you felt the talk went today. So talking about talk, let's welcome Joy to the interview. Hello, my darling. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone.
We are, you say when we chat, I am one side of the country in West Wales and Joy is the other side, literally as far as you can get. On the was it east?
Yes.
Yeah, we're
East,
west, you're east.
Yeah.
So it's a blimmin' long way. Good, probably 8 hours drive from
at least, yeah.
If we don't stop for a wee. Not that we do that anymore because we don't want to.
Well, only wearing a mask, of course.
Yeah, gowned up with a zip and a hood. Yeah, absolutely. So welcome, my darling. So Joy today is here to talk about her business and who her ideal clients are and what actual pain she resolves through doing what she does. So Joy, how long have you been doing what you do and what do you do?
So I've been doing what I do for over 30 years. I do 2 brands of law. I'm a qualified lawyer. Came to it late in life for most. This is my second career. So my first career was nursing. And I swapped in my mid-30s, and I'm a qualified lawyer, and I do, having worked as a secretary after leaving nursing, I decided I would train as a proper lawyer, which I've been doing for a long time now. And I do wills and probate and trusts, and I also do property law, and that gives me quite a unique in, because I'm a property investor now. And my company, Stressless Property, runs other people's properties. But I'm here to talk to you about my company, Stressless Wills, which does estate planning. And I'm here to talk about what happens when fate intervenes. So if you're poorly or worse, if somebody close to you is poorly or worse, there are, as they say, only 2 certainties in life: death and taxes. I deal with both of them.
Does it make you a happy bunny?
Sometimes I can be a bit pessimistic about things, because as lawyers, we spend our lives learning about what goes wrong. Nothing ever goes right in our world. So we learn by what goes wrong rather than what goes right. But that means we also collect lots of horror stories that help other people understand the reasons that they should do their will in a certain way, or what would happen if they were poorly, they had a stroke, they got run over, they had a car accident. All those things that happen when you're in business, you can come to, and your business no longer exists if you've been ill. And I also, right at the other end of that, when we're talking about, so it comes in 2 stages. It comes in death planning and life planning. We always do death planning first, or at least the minor aspects of death planning, because if you know when you're going to die, you're already, I don't know whether that'd be unfortunate or clever, or either. It'd be worrying. So I help ladies generally through that mire, and then occasionally, not always, but some people want to talk about the real nitty-gritty of death. So what you want to do for advanced care directives and advanced planning, and whether you want to be resuscitated, and I help them with that, because sometimes it's so much easier to talk to somebody who doesn't care. And I don't mean I don't care, but I don't care, I don't care in the same way as I would if my son came and talked to me about it. I want to make it as dignified for people as I can. As a nurse, I believe strongly that the last thing we did for somebody was what we called last offices. We laid them out. The best we could do was treat them with dignity, and it's just extended into that part of my work as well. So I just want to make sure that you get the end you want, and not, you know, and not what you don't, and therefore I can make sure the money's put aside for that, and you can, and you're, you know, you're obvious. I always tell people, you know, my mother didn't make a will because she thought she'd die. Well, she still bloody died.
Which didn't help at the end when she's not around.
It didn't help at all, because we had no idea what sort of funeral she wanted. We had no idea whether she wanted to be buried or cremated, because she wouldn't talk about it. And if you tried to talk to her about somebody else dying, her parents, for instance, I was privileged to have grandparents into my 40s. If you talked about that, she would say, you're wishing them dead. And I wasn't ever wishing them dead. I was wanting them to have what they wanted.
I suppose the difference is nowadays is I personally feel there is a lot more female business owners. I think we as business owners are supporting, God forbid, the economy, which is going a bit wayward at this moment, as we know. However, but we, as it starts as kitchen table businesses, grow into something particularly strong.
Yes.
And us as women may not have, over the years, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, have not had that need or understanding that actually we need to make sure things are put in place for us in the future.
Well, 10 years ago, I was still so we do something called equalising estates. So we would, if your husband owned more than you, or you owned more than your husband, to make use of all tax breaks, we would equalise estates. So I was still equalising estates up until at least 10 years ago. I haven't done one recently, where the husband owned the house in its entirety.
So there's lots of nitty-gritty things, isn't there, about not just specifically women who are in business, who I know are your ideal client. Your ideal client are of us lovely ladies probably watching today, because that's our channel here, saying that you're running a business. But also as a woman, there may be circumstances where you are more, I'm going to say more traditional, you know, which depends what relationships you're in, or what information you've been given as a young person, or like you say, your mother, what your mother did, what they've told you. So it's about making sure that we as women are safe from now to whenever we
but still, if you're not married, you can be even more vulnerable. So I dealt with a lady a few years ago who had been a housekeeper. This was of a generation beyond me, my mother's generation, maybe further. She had been a housekeeper for this bloke, because that's what she did. It was a tiny little cottage. I mean, it wasn't, they'd lived together for 50 years, and she got nothing. So because he had no will.
So tell me about this is me throwing stuff at you as I'm thinking, darling. So I know you're on the ball.
I like to do that.
So this, you know, the word living in sin.
Yes.
You know, you're living together.
That was definitely that for them, but it's not necessarily now.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So I was in sin. Thank you, Mum and Dad, when I first got together with my first husband 25 billion years ago. However, we were still saying that because we weren't married, that things might have changed, that we were still sharing and everything was equal.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me the law now. Tell me if we are married.
Well, the law was the same then, and it's never changed. If you don't have, if you're not married, you don't have a right, without a will, you don't have the right to your partner's stuff, anything of it. So I once dealt with the other side of this situation, which actually upset me enormously, because as a lawyer, we don't always get the person we agree with, and we have to fight their corner. And from a law point of view, they were exactly right. But from a moral point of view, I found they were lacking. But this particular girl, who I was acting for, the family of the man, had seen her boyfriend run over in front of her on a bike and killed. And when they left the hospital, after switching off the machine, his family asked her for the keys to the house.
Whoa. Which,
that's how exposed you are. She actually refused to, but it was awful. It was a terrible situation. She was clearly very hurt. She did, in the end, pay them off and got to keep her house. But it took probably 2 years before we sorted it all.
But that's something that can be put in place,
easily remedied by doing a will.
Yeah, before. So what would somebody do then? So they're sat watching and they're going, I live with my partner, we haven't sorted anything out, or we've got kids, or well, I was married but I'm no longer am and I had a will. What would you say to do?
So if you're married and you have a will, if you're no longer married and you haven't got divorced, you need to look at your will. If you got divorced, then the person who you are divorced from is treated as dead for the purposes of that will. So that might be a perfectly serviceable will for you because it's leaving everything to your kids. However, if you aren't living in the matrimonial home, or you are living in the matrimonial home and he's gone, or she's, in this case, he'd be gone, he still might inherit it. That might not be your idea. That might not be what you want. Because it depends what the deeds of the house say. So, the land registry don't sadly put on the deeds, if you die, this other person's going to own this whole house. They put something on that says they're not going to, and they do it with their usual black magic bullshit. And it's what's called a Form A restriction. And I can read one, as I have. I only need to look at it and know it's a Form A restriction. But most people who are used to looking at English have no idea, because we talk about joint tenants and tenants in common, and we don't. It doesn't say that. It says something else. So
yeah,
that's that from that point of view. So you need to make sure that you are what's termed as tenants in common. If you have a will and you are divorced or separated, if you're separated and you don't want your husband to have everything and the will leaves it all to him, then you need to do a new will. Because it will still go to him. I interestingly had I have two very good friends, or I have a couple that were very good friends who are not yet divorced, but have split up. And I found myself in the middle telling one that she needed to do something, and then realised I needed to tell the other one. He positively ignored me. She thought about it and said, no, I don't want to do that. But he ignored me. He has never addressed that. But that's how blokes are generally.
So really it's about going into things with your eyes wide open.
Yes, it is. And if you've got married and you think you've got a will, you haven't. So if you're on your second marriage and you think everything's going to your kids, and you've got married after you made your will and you didn't make it in contemplation of marriage, which is a very specific clause, then
that's null and void, as they say.
Null and void. Your new husband or wife, as we can be either nowadays, will get everything, because your will has been revoked. So recently there was something on the television about a young man, and when I say young man, he might have been my age and he might have been a bit, but the lady was in her mid-80s and they got married secretly. Her will was revoked and he got everything. Her kids had no idea he was even married.
Oh, so there's another thing there, isn't there? It's actually making sure that actually you're safe in more than just being the law there.
So one of the ways you do that, or you can do that, is at least to make sure your half, because everybody has the right to leave their half to anybody they wish. So one of the wills I draw up is to do just that, and it's a bloodline will. Now, it means that if for instance, you and Graham, you're half of the house.
My husband, guys.
You're half of the house and Graham's half of the house are separated out. You leave your half of the house to him for life, but not, so he never owns it. And anything else you want to for life, but you leave the people at the end are your boys.
I get that pleased about that, to be honest.
Yeah, and I that's the way to do it now, because you can't be certain that your children will end up with your staff.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose we're talking about marriage, and things have changed again over the last few decades, that there are more divorce, there are more ladies who have and men, but ladies, as we're talking about us guys here, who have started again and remarried or actually decided that's not for them, but actually to make sure that whatever we have built in our businesses and built and brought into a relationship goes to who we wish it to go to.
Yeah, but ditto, the worst, the worst thing I can see happening in a situation like that is that one of you dies, the other one marries somebody else, revokes all their will. You've left everything to each other. Their will is revoked, and then my friend's husband said it really lovely. He said, if I'm remiss in making another will, not that I mean to do it, but I don't realise, or I forget,
get round to it,
and then you die. Then your husband dies, as we're talking to ladies, then your husband dies, and this woman's got hordes of kids that he's remarried to, and they get all your stuff.
Yep. I suppose the thing is, what we're saying really in relation to any of it is, do not be scared to ask questions about what is going on out there.
Yeah, and one of the things I have started doing in lockdown that I've done occasionally before, but never had the same ability to do it as we've come to Zoom, is to have the whole family in a Zoom meeting.
Oh, wow.
So that we're all sitting there, because particularly it's usually some small business person wants me to talk to their parents, but they want to be above board and they've got siblings. And I'm happy to talk to their parents. I like talking to old folk. I like sorting it all out. I like a bit of scheming, and we can sort it all out. But everybody knows what we're doing.
Yeah. And also, I'm gonna touch on something that's been a bit controversial over the last few years, and that's our care home thing.
Yeah.
So we are all living a little longer. We've worked our bloody socks off, literally. Excuse the French, ladies. Unless you're French, it wasn't French. We've worked our socks off on our business. We've got it productive. We're earning money from it. We pay our taxes. We do all that. And then, unfortunately, we may need to go into a care home. And how do we stop that
the way
madness?
You'll never stop losing your half. That's just, there are things we can do, but they're quite expensive, and I can arrange them. I'm never certain whether they'll work, so I have that, because I know the law, the government not beyond changing the laws retrospectively. Now, trust law, I don't think they'll change, because I think they rely on it too much. That said, there are some real horror stories about care. Having money so that you can top it up so they can you can stay where you want to is not a bad thing. So I have recently lost my mother-in-law. She didn't get a penny help because she had too much help. We've managed to preserve most of the money by investing in property. But the aside from that is, and something that it taught me, was that she was in a beautiful home. It was lovely. It wasn't the cheapest place. She wasn't ever going to get any help because we'd tried to sort it out and actually nobody would help. The social services were so overwhelmed when we thought we needed help. It was going to kill my sister-in-law if we didn't do something. We sent her off for respite care and she never came home again. But we had the choice of where she went. In the same vein, if you don't have the money, they put you out to tender.
Well, that sounds a positive statement, doesn't it?
Yeah. So it's as cheap, and there are horrible tales, and I'm not. They could be urban myth, and they could be true. I know some of them are true because I've seen court cases, but people being sent so that their wife and their husbands never see them again because they've been sent from London to Manchester because it's cheaper.
So I suppose what we're saying again is make sure you talk to somebody like yourself.
Yeah.
Specifically yourself, because I know Joy really well. We've known each other. We've even been on holiday together, but don't tell everybody. That seems 100.
Holiday, mate. We worked hard.
We worked really hard. We just weren't in this country. And we went out to dinner. It was my birthday weekend. I remember it very clearly.
Warm as well.
It was lovely. But I know Joy really well, and I think if there's anybody out there that you could talk to and just go through what's in your head or anything that's actually been perked up from our little chat today, is ask a bloody question. You know, it's not we're not saying anything is right, anything is wrong, but if you've got any mullings going on about any law topics, whether it's in relation to wills, testate, did you say that's the word, isn't it? Wills and testatory. Obviously,
life planning is a whole different, and I could sit and talk about that all day probably, but that's about the stuff you do after you've done the death planning. And that'd be things like lasting powers of attorney, maybe paying for your own funeral, maybe putting stuff in trust. But until we know what you've got,
you can't do any of that.
No.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I suppose where we're coming from really is your ideal client are businesswomen, who you know that you can support with questions, to be able to say, actually, once I've got the information from you, I can then tell you what you can do.
Yeah, and I'm not here to make the decision. I'm here to inform you. I mean, I've done one for somebody recently, and I wanted them to do all the tenants in common thing and leave the property, half property, and they didn't want to do that. And if you don't want to do that, that's all right. My job is to inform you. You can say, no, I don't want to do that. I just want this done.
And that's fine, because it's nothing to do with you. It's a person.
Yes.
Your job is to tell the truth about the law.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And try and demystify it. Now, and that's part of my thing, is that if I talk to you 5 times, I will talk to you 5 times. If you need me to talk to you 5 times, I will do that. I'll go over and over and over and over and over and help you understand. And that might be by telling you little stories, which are much easier to put into context.
Grasp,
if you put a person on them, and you probably don't get that from most estate planners. I try and be a bit more soft and fluffy because it's not a nice subject. I'm also a born comedian, so if I can find something to laugh about, I will. And that always helps as well. So, it's worth sorting out and talking to.
And just get it out there on the table, as it were. Yeah. I think that's one of the things, my mother is, is doing grand, bless her. She's in her late 80s, but we still talk about it. Every time unfortunately she's in England and I'm in Wales, We are waiting for you guys to let us in, as they say.
Next week?
Next week, yeah, next week, so we can go down. But every time she says to me, right, we've already talked about this tree, haven't we? Yes, Mum. You know, it's all in the bureau. Yes, Mum. You know, so it's about making sure, not just for yourself, but your family. I know I feel calm, whatever that means, that I've actually, you know, I can speak for my mum, I can sign for my mum, you know, all those things that we need to do, and to make sure that everything goes as smoothly as possible, because we do know it's going to happen one day, and it's going to happen to us. And I think that's one of the things that I'm very clear with my children, is these are the things I would like and these are the things I would not like. It
is very difficult. I mean, my I don't think I'll ever forget my mother-in-law was in the waiting room quite a long time, and when she finally shuffled off, my husband phoning my sister-in-law, and all he had to say to her was, "This is the call." And that was I mean, we knew that it was going to be any day anyway, but you know, all he said to her was, "This is the call."
Yeah.
And I took the call to say she died from the home, and I answered the phone and she said, "Oh, it's Ali." I went, "Has she gone?"
You have to
nurse. I had different conversations with Ali, who's the head of care at the home. And I said, "Has she gone?" She went, "Yeah, about 6." I went, "All right, okay." You know, and that was the...
Yeah. And it is about, again, making sure your relationships with people around you, that you are doing that, you know, and I know it's sad. I know things are sad, especially when it's young people, or, you know, horrendous. I couldn't even imagine.
It never gets easier.
I think it's horrendous.
If you end up doing one for young people, if I end up not necessarily the wills, but the one that gets me is the young mum who comes in because her husband's just died. And I will almost certainly end up crying with her. Yeah.
Because I think that's because you are approachable and you are able to take, you know, that and support somebody.
And when we was allowed to, I wasn't above hugging people, but obviously
one day
when
we get back to whatever normality is. Joy, I've actually loved speaking with you. I always love speaking with you, you know that. But to be able to give information over to people who might not have thought about it or are scared to talk about it, and I suppose the first door to open, one is if you have a partner you need to talk to, you know, certainly that's a, you know, glass of wine I'm suggesting one night, then let's just talk about this. But also to talk to somebody who is caring, who is supportive, who is legally able to give advice, because that's a huge topic out there in the world of wills, because it is not as regulated.
It's not regulated legal activity. So not everybody who does wills is qualified lawyer like I am. So.
Yeah, and that could, again, you know, I could do it. I've got no idea what I'm talking about, but I could set up a business and I don't know, charge you, I don't know, 99 quid, and we could write something on the back of a
that's often the telltale of when it is cheap. It will be 99 quid or free, because you're not going to get, they'll ask you what you want and they'll give you what you want. They won't tell you what you should have.
Yeah, that's the difference, isn't it? Absolutely. And if you're going to step into this world and make sure everything is right, then you've already stepped. Let's make sure it's right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've loved it, darling. I'm going to ask you very kindly if you could send me a few links of your Facebook.
I'll send you a Calendly link, which will allow anybody to make
that's really cool.
A complimentary estate review appointment. I get fairly booked up, but more than happy to take as many as I can. Some of them might spill into the new year, but yeah.
That's really kind, darling, really kind. So I'll take a Calendly link from Joy, and if people can't say it now, if anybody knows what it is, it means that you can basically book a time in Joy's calendar when she's free.
Which will send you an automatic Zoom.
Awesome, like we do on ICA.
Yeah. If you make an appointment in my Calendly, you will get an automatic Zoom reply. Fabulous,
fabulous. And then you might, if you're lucky, you might even meet Joy's cat, because I meet Joy's cat.
He's quiet, actually. He hasn't come to
he comes and says hello, so that's quite cool. So just love it. Thank you, darling. I will put all the links up. If you've got any questions out there in ICA land, you know, you're a member of the group, so this is a little bonus for you guys who
just tag me in, and I'll try and answer them. If necessary, I'll do a video and put that in the...
Oh, fab. Any questions, then pop it on the group, on the thread, and pop Joy there, and I will be watching it anyway. Pop Joy and myself in a tag if you have any questions. And let's get this sorted. You know, this is something that we can easily do, and it's a fantastic thing that we can do on ICA. So Joy and I have been talking quietly about joining forces and getting something out there for you lovely ladies. So as some sort of product, so you can get it quick and easy, because I trust Joy absolutely, and that's where we need to make sure that the people we're working with are lovely people, and that's why she's part of ICA. So I quite like that. So love to everybody out there in ICA TV land, and if you're on LinkedIn or YouTube or Theresa Lawrie-Ashton ICAtv page, you are definitely on #replay. I think that's a new term. I like that. #replay. Pop it in, and then we know whether you're watching live or whether you're watching on that replay thing. But it's been fantastic today. Love you lots, Joy. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sweetheart. Stay put, because I'm going to have a coffee with you in a minute. All right, my darling. Anyway, everybody out there on ICA TV, thank you so much, my darlings. And we will see you in the morning at 10:30. So take care, guys. Love you lots.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.